Welcome to USA Rift. You know, you aren't broke because you spend too much. The truth is, the system was just never designed for you to win in the first place. In this explainer, we're dropping straight into the dark, hidden reality of the modern American economy. It's an economy where doing everything exactly right is somehow no longer enough. Before we totally expose the truth about what's really happening to your money, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment on what you thought down below. And hey, if you want to help us keep uncovering these financial realities, please support the channel by becoming a channel member. All right, prepare yourself, because the financial reality you're about to see, it's not a glitch. It's a feature of a machine operating exactly as intended.
Let that question sit with you for a second. Why are people making $300,000 a year, secretly broke? I mean, think about it. You went to the right schools, you got the right degree, you climbed the corporate ladder, sacrificed your sleep, and secured this massive top-tier salary. By all the traditional metrics of the American dream, you made it, right? You crossed the finish line. But instead of feeling financially invincible, you just feel like you're drowning. You're making way more money than your parents ever dreamed of, and yet you're literally one medical emergency or one missed paycheck away from total disaster. Why is that?
Well, the answer starts with a pretty jarring, uncomfortable truth. Traditionally, we assume that hitting $250,000 a year means absolute financial security. We think it means massive savings accounts, fully funded college funds, and zero debt. But Goldman Sachs recently put out a highly detailed study looking into the actual finances of top earners in America, and the result? 40%. Yeah, 40% of people earning over $300,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. Just let that sink in. 4 out of 10 households pulling in over $250,000 are completely tapped out at the end of the month. It totally shatters the illusion of the six-figure American dream.
Look at this raw, unfiltered confession from a high earner on Reddit. They said, "The amount of stress I carry to make this much money is aging me. I'll never be as carefree or feel as rich as I did as a bartender." This right here is the psychological thriller of the modern economy. The higher the salary, the higher the anxiety. It's this terrifying paradox where making $300,000 a year actually feels more suffocating than making minimum wage. And that's because the stakes are infinitely higher and the fall is just so much further.
Section 1. The six-figure illusion. More money, less freedom. Okay, let's dive into this. We really need to unravel the cognitive dissonance happening right now in the upper middle class. When the average person hears $300,000 a year, they picture yachts, right? They picture mansions on a hill, private jets, and a life of total unrestricted leisure. But the reality of a modern $300K salary is completely different. It's leased SUVs, private school tuitions just to keep up with the neighbors, maxed out credit cards, and waking up at 3 a.m. with rolling panic attacks about a potential corporate layoff. We have to redefine what paycheck to paycheck actually means in this specific income bracket. The Goldman Sachs study defined it exactly like this. I find it tough to make progress on any long-term financial goals. You see, at $300K, you're not skipping meals. You're not facing starvation, but you are trapped in a terrifying inability to escape the hamster wheel. The money comes in, and the money immediately flows right back out to service systemic costs and mandatory consumption. You're wealthy on paper, but completely impoverished when it comes to actual freedom. Now look closely at this data. This is honestly the darkest, most twisted irony of the entire study. Among those earning $200,000 to $300,000, 16% live paycheck to paycheck. But once you cross that $300,000 threshold, that number skyrockets to 40%. Earning more money actually increases the rate of severe financial strain. How is that mathematically possible? Well, it's because the modern financial machine is perfectly calibrated to absorb every single extra dollar you make the absolute second you make it.
Section 2. The invisible structural squeeze.
If you're feeling this squeeze, I really want to validate your struggle right now. This is not just about you buying too many lattes or making a few bad personal choices. You are up against a massive, invisible structural squeeze. The economy has kind of mutated into a systemic mechanism deliberately built to extract wealth from the working class, even the highly paid working class, before it can ever compound into actual generation-changing freedom. Let's look at the brutal, unforgiving math behind this extraction. What we have here is the MIT living wage calculation for a family of 4 in a high-cost area like San Francisco. Now, what's really interesting about this is how perfectly it breaks down the reality. So we're going to meticulously dissect these rows down to the microscopic details, because this proves mathematically how a $250,000 salary simply evaporates into thin air. First up, look at childcare, $54,401. Let's really break that down. That means before you even pay taxes on your own income, you have to generate over $50,000 purely to ensure someone keeps your children safe while you go back to the office just to afford to pay them. It is an astonishing tax on working parents. Next, housing. $50,981, just for basic shelter. And we aren't talking about a sprawling estate here. We're talking about a standard home in a safe neighborhood that's close enough to those high-paying jobs. Then we have the silent killer, taxes. $44,184 automatically seized from your checks. By the time you add in food, medical, and basic transportation, MIT calculates the total required income just to survive, literally just to exist without going into the red, is $264,285. Think about that. This family hasn't taken a single vacation, they haven't bought a luxury watch, they haven't invested a dime for retirement or built an emergency fund. The system has structurally consumed $250,000 just to keep them treading water.
And the crazy thing is, the squeeze is getting tighter every single year. Look at the latest 2025 data from KFF on employer health benefits. The average annual premium for family coverage has now surged to nearly $27,000. Now, while your employer might cover a chunk of that, workers are still having $6,850 ripped straight out of their paychecks just for the privilege of having insurance. And let's be super clear about what that actually means. That nearly $7,000 doesn't mean your healthcare is free. You still have a massive deductible you have to meet out of pocket before the insurance actually kicks in. If you break your arm or your kid gets sick, you're still swiping a credit card. This is an invisible squeeze. It silently eats away at your wage growth year after year, long before a single dollar ever hits your checking account.
Section 3. High earner, not rich yet.
So where does this all leave you? It leaves you trapped in a very specific modern condition, a psychological and financial purgatory that afflicts millions of top professionals today. You are a Henry, high earner, not rich yet. This demographic perfectly represents the heavy psychological weight carried by millennials and Gen Xers who did everything society asked of them. You got the advanced degrees, probably taking on 6 figures of student debt just to do it. You work the brutal 60-hour weeks, missing dinners and weekends. Your income puts you in the top percentiles of the country, but because of asset inflation, astronomical housing costs, and structural taxation, your net worth is shockingly low. You are a high-income generator, churning out massive economic value for the system, but you remain completely, terrifyingly vulnerable to the economy. And that exact vulnerability creates the ultimate trap, perfectly articulated by this investor quote. The biggest trap, golden handcuffs. You build a lifestyle around the high income, and now you need the high income. This is the visceral fear that keeps 300K earners awake at night staring at the ceiling. You are leveraged to the hilt. You have an expensive mortgage, massive car payments, and premium daycare. If you lose that high-paying job tomorrow, you're stranded. You literally cannot afford your own life. You are chained to your desk by golden handcuffs, completely reliant on your next paycheck to prevent the entire house of cards from collapsing. And that is the exact opposite of true financial independence.
Section 4. The lifestyle creep trap.
All right, we've looked at the systemic traps. Now, we have to pivot and look in the mirror. We have to confront the uncomfortable truth of your own behavioral psychology. Because while the system is rigged to take your money, you are actively helping it. Welcome to dopamine spending. Data from Lionhood Financial Coaching highlights a really dark psychological cycle for high earners. The system essentially weaponizes dopamine. Because your job demands 60, sometimes 70 hours a week of high stress, high pressure, mentally exhausting work, you end up using your massive salary to buy relief. You are so depleted by Friday night that you spend money to cope with the stress of making that money. You buy the luxury car because, well, you feel you earned it. You book the expensive resort to numb your brain for 5 days. You order premium takeout every night because you simply do not have the energy to cook. You buy these things because you genuinely feel you deserve it after a brutal week. But very quickly, those luxuries become your baseline. They become routine. And once they do, they stop feeling optional. And this brilliantly illustrates the concept of the hedonic treadmill. It's unconscious lifestyle inflation. Your salary bumps up, and instantly your standards bump up. You decide the Honda just isn't good enough anymore, so you upgrade to a luxury brand. You decide the starter home is too small, so you take on a massive mortgage for a house in the right zip code. But you know, it's also the microscopic details. It's upgrading from the regular grocery store to the premium organic market where your weekly bill literally doubles. It's outsourcing your lawn care, hiring a house cleaner, buying $7 coffees every single morning. You start prioritizing short-term status signaling over long-term financial security. It is the absolute absurdity of needing an $80,000 SUV and a $1,500 a month car lease just to feel like you are successful in America, all while your actual savings account stays completely flat.
Or, to translate lifestyle inflation into raw, undeniable reality, as one Reddit user put it with brutal honesty, it is simply pissing money away on shite you don't need to impress friends you don't have. Just let the sheer gravity of that sink in for a second. You are trading the finite, irreplaceable hours of your life for a paycheck, only to hand that paycheck straight back to corporations to buy depreciating assets. And from what? Just to signal your wealth to people who are way too busy worrying about their own massive debts to even care about yours?
Now, this is the thematic turning point of this entire explainer. You have to understand the profound, fundamental difference between earning money and building wealth. Earning money is a high salary. It's flashy, it's incredibly stressful, and it makes you 100% dependent on an employer's mercy. Building wealth is quiet. It's unflashy. It's having a high net worth, owning investments that pay you while you sleep, and ultimately having time freedom. Wealth isn't the $80,000 car sitting in the driveway. Wealth is the ability to walk away from a toxic job without even needing to check your bank account.
Section 5. Breaking the golden handcuffs.
Let's move to how this builds, because if you want to survive, you must escape the machine. And escaping the machine requires deliberate, aggressive, calculated architecture. You have to actively interrupt your own psychology and completely restructure your financial reality. This brings us to the 50-30-20 framework detailed by Success. It's simple in theory, but execution is literally everything. 50% of your net income goes to absolute needs, things like housing, groceries, utilities. 30% goes to wants. That's the lifestyle stuff. But that final 20%, that goes directly to savings, investing, and crushing debt. Now, for a $300K earner who is used to a bloated lifestyle, forcing your living expenses back down into that 50% box is incredibly painful. It requires extreme discipline. But you absolutely must treat that final 20% with the intensity of survival. That 20% is not optional. It is not just what happens to be left over at the end of the month. That is the money you are paying to literally buy back your future freedom.
To actually beat the system, you need some tactical maneuvers. First, automate all savings and investments immediately. The money should vanish into brokerage accounts before you even see it. Second, hide money from yourself. Create real friction between you and your cash. And the ultimate cheat code? When you get a raise or a bonus or your salary jumps from $150K to $300K, you ruthlessly maintain your current lifestyle. You live like you still make $80,000 and you invest the massive spread. Think about the math here. If you keep your expenses flat and invest a $100,000 spread every single year into compounding assets, you are rapidly building multi-million-dollar wealth. Mathematically speaking, resisting lifestyle inflation is the absolute only way to buy back your life.
The modern matrix of money is built entirely around illusion. The system desperately wants you to look rich. It wants you leveraged, spending your dopamine dollars, strapped into a luxury car, chained to your desk, generating taxes and corporate profits until the day you die. But you have a choice to make. You can choose the exhausting, stressful appearance of wealth, or you can choose the quiet, unflashy reality of actual freedom. So which one are you going to build?